Hi, everybody. It's the 1st of August. We are making it through the summer while kids are preparing to go back to school. So, where does the summertime go? And football season starts soon. That's the good side of this. Some very timely issues, and let's begin with one we have tried to ignore, but COVID is back and is causing a lot of people to be sick, and they've kind of forgotten how unpleasant this disease can be. The current variant, not life threatening, still extraordinarily unpleasant for a lot of people. Masks, COVID vaccinations. If you want to get one now, it will protect against current variants. But the one that is being forecast to be released, let's say September, October, will likely be more effective against the current variants as this thing kind of meanders a little bit. That's what happens with the flu. It's the same thing. We modify the flu vaccines year to year based on the variants that are occurring, and nature keeps changing these little bitty viruses that impact us so dramatically. So think through COVID, and the best protection for you is to stay away from sick people, stay home if you are sick yourself, wear a mask, N95 if you want to protect yourself from other people, and a surgical mask if you want them to be protected from you. A very timely issue here as we get into August is what are called vector borne illnesses. Fancy term. The CDC has released several documents over the last couple weeks about vector borne illnesses. As the summertime comes, and based on what's currently going on our planet with warming, there are a lot more mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. As you look across the United States, there's kind of a spectrum from East Coast to West Coast. On the East Coast, we have a lot more ticks and tick-borne illnesses. Across the entire country are mosquitoes. As you get to the West Coast, it's fleas, and particularly in the western desert areas, and then on into California and Hawaii, we have to worry about fleas. All three of these have one characteristics. They get into the bloodstream in humans, and they carry diseases that then get injected into the blood system. That's the problem with vector-borne illnesses. So let's quickly go through them. All three of those you should know about in your local area. If you are traveling somewhere, and in particular traveling to tropical areas for your summer vacation, end of summer vacation, fall vacation, cruises, etc., you're particularly prone to mosquito-borne illnesses. And sometimes you'll be vaccinated if you go to certain places. They will require you to be vaccinated. Mosquitoes are, as you know, an insect that lives on blood from mammals. They love humans. They're very efficient at getting humans to be their blood source. As such, they live in watery areas, and they exist and lay their eggs in water. So anything you can prevent accumulation of water with is very important for preventing mosquito illnesses in yourself or your family. If you have little children, putting what is really mosquito netting over them is important if you're going to be outside, because many of the chemicals that we use in adults to prevent mosquitoes from finding you are chemicals that are not good on infants. So you try to use physical barriers in little children, and that is mosquito netting, it's screening, and it's loose clothing. And for all size humans, loose clothing protecting the skin surface does not allow that little penetrating probe from the mosquito to get to your skin. So loose fitting, lightweight clothing covering as many areas of your skin as you can is the way to prevent mosquito bites. It also keeps ticks away from you, for those of you who are in areas where ticks are a problem. And for the West Coast people, fleas, the same thing. Any skin covering that you can have with loose fitting clothing, you have to seal so that they don't get up underneath, of course. That's the key. Mosquitoes are carrying diseases now with common names like West Nile and malaria. and malaria is an other country disease typically. But this summer, we've had dengue, which is a disease that is moving up from the Caribbean, in particular Puerto Rico and the little island countries. And as people have been traveling to them, they can come back with this vicious little virus from a mosquito bite called dengue. One of the acronyms for dengue is bone break disease because it causes a febrile illness in humans where they get such intense rigors they have been known to break bones. That typically doesn't happen in Americans who happen to be um, much stronger and have stronger bones. Nonetheless, that's one of the names that dengue is known by. It causes you to be very, very sick. It causes headaches, chills, a rash at times, and then can cause other very much more serious diseases where your blood vessels begin to break down. Don't want to talk too much about it. This is all about prevention of mosquito borne illnesses. As we go into August, there's many cases of an infection that occurs around the brain, known as encephalitis. And one of those that is fairly common is West Nile. West Nile happens to occur in people who are elder, who are out walking in evening hours, and that disease is in the mosquito population. And when they bite, they can inject the virus into the bloodstream, and in that way, they're getting their blood meal. The mosquito is, but then the illness can then begin to breed in the human. So, West Nile and related encephalitis is a really bad part of this time of the year. And so prevention is key. Prevention means staying out of the environment where they're most common, which is sunrise time, so dawn and dusk. And in particular, in our area of the country, at dusk is really prevalent, and you'll just find mosquitoes coating you. You can use a variety of mosquito repellents. They have names like DEET and permethrin and oil of lemon eucalyptus and some other products that have fancy names like PMD and other things. Safe for adults. Check the warning labels, and if you need, the CDC has a really nice layout of preventing mosquito bites using chemicals. And there's some chemicals you can use on your clothing, like permethrin, that is really not very safe on skin. But if you put it on your clothing, repels mosquitoes and kills mosquitoes and keeps them away from you. That is not for use on your skin. Second disease is ticks, and we most famously know those for biting our animals, and them running through wildland areas is particularly known to cause them to have a tick get onto their hair surface and then crawl down onto their skin. Ticks particularly like areas that have good blood supply or fluids, and so they'll go looking for those. So that's in the hair and around the eyes. Those you prevent by inspecting for them once you come out of those wildland areas. In humans, we have a hard time being able to see through, for example, dark hair and dark long hair. And so somebody has to help you inspect and make sure that you don't have any. Many of them you can feel by running your hands or a comb or brush through your hair, but you can't pick all of them up. And then if they embed into your skin, into your scalp or another area, they begin to suck blood and literally begin to grow as they have a meal. They lay their eggs and they move on and infect other people. So ticks are prevented by the same kind of clothing and by certain tick repellent chemicals, and then most importantly by inspecting. Don't let the animals bring them in. Don't let the kids play in wildland areas without you inspecting them when they come back in. And you know, our animals can have the tick collars and the tick chemicals that coat them. Let's talk about fleas. Fleas are small insects that survive by feeding on human or animal blood. They really don't like humans, but if they can't find animals, they will survive by feeding on humans. Fleas can cause plague, they can cause catch scratch disease, and they can cause other parasites. For those of you in the western part of the country, really important to prevent flea bites. Fleas are smaller and they're harder to find than ticks are. And in general, it's about prevention, and that is appropriate clothing when you go into wildland areas to prevent fleas. There are some chemicals that are flea repellent. Check the CDC website to find those. So, as we get towards this time of the year, many of our summer critters become much more common, and that includes, the mosquitoes that have been breeding and breeding, and additional generations come aboard. They get more prevalent as we get towards the fall. Actually, bees and flies and other regular insects become much more common, and their activity seems to increase right before we get to the colder weather. So be aware of all of those things. And because the CDC has created a lot of literature and been talking a lot in the media about these vector borne illnesses, it was a really good time to talk about them. Always a good to prevent any of these things from happening, starting with COVID, which is, again, please wear a mask if you're concerned or around people who are ill. Don't come to work if you're ill. Use your old COVID tests that you still have available to test for illness. They're still effective. And when it's available this fall is probably a really good time for most Americans to get an update on their COVID vaccination. It's Doc Talk. We're in August. It's a lovely summertime, and we're preparing for some of our fall events. Make sure you enjoy, get in any last minute vacations that you can, and enjoy this warm weather while we have it. Thanks all. Take care of yourself. Talk to you in a couple weeks.